It's really wonderful to follow an academic administrator that thinks education is really important. Sven? Yes, sir. I believe the Academy is doing this. And I congratulate Chalmers for trying to find their own duck. But I think we have to change many things. And I want to talk about a thing that could be happening in parallel to what's happening here to make space for the change. So I grew up, for 60 years I was a student or a teacher in the US system. I know the US system. Unfortunately, I do not know the Swedish system well. Please listen, filter, and if some of the things that I say apply here, fine. But I cannot tell you about your system. So I'm going to argue that we need to outsource training to a new system so that we can focus on education. And I will explain more about that. Right now, I think there are clearly serious questions about the efficacy of what we're doing. The universities are surrounded by incredible rapid change. In the United States, our product is far too expensive. We have a wonderful opportunity to improve. Everyone agrees on that. This is a page from the Engineering the Changing World, the Millennium Report. Jim Duderstadt and his colleagues have pointed out that there are stacks, many stacks, of reports that say it's time to change. The caption at the bottom, a cacophony of reports, a chorus of concerns, is true everywhere, so we need to do something. In our country, the cost of education is growing at triple the inflation rate. And legislators are on the case of the universities for not doing what they should. Parents are asking their kids to rethink college education because it's so expensive. Industry is trying to tell the universities what should be included in the programs and what is not. Several organizations are creating new rankings, saying we know better how to rank schools. The fiscal chaos that swept through the United States a couple of years ago has caused chaos in state-supported schools and in private universities like Harvard, who lost $10 billion with a B dollars. And even last week, in fact this week in the Chronicle of Higher Education, there was an article about the United States schools pulling back while China in particular was moving very aggressively to improve their system. We are losing control of our own fate, and I believe we have an ethical obligation to the students to fix that.
I stand before you today to apologize. The system has failed you. I have failed you. I have failed to help you share your talent with the world when the world needs talent more than ever, yet it's being wasted every day by an educational system steeped in tradition and old ideas. It's time for a new tradition. It's time to realize talent isn't just in schools like this one. It's everywhere. It's time to use technology to rewrite the rules of education. To learn how you learn so we can teach you better. It's time a university adapted to you rather than you adapting to it. It's time for a different kind of university. It's your time.
Now, I do not agree with all of the dialogue in that advertisement, but I do think the agency that created the ad used those words because they played directly to parents and students in the United States. I think there is a lot of truth in that ad. It resonated loudly. But even if you listen to veterans of the Academy, Gordon Gee has been the president of more universities than anybody ever. He's back at Ohio State now. If you just look at the highlighted words, emphasis that I added, the last group, save ourselves from slouching into irrelevance, from one of our veterans, responsible veterans, that's a serious matter. So let me repeat. I'm going to emphasize that training and education are different, that training is a commodity, that education is the part that includes comparative advantage, and that much too much of what we call engineering education is in fact coercive training badly done. Now let me talk about training and education and clarify a bit. I think learning calculus is clearly training. Learning to think using calculus is education. Learning spelling and grammar, training. Learning to communicate, education. CAD program, training. Design, definitely education. In fact, in many cases, learning about the parts is training. Learning how to put them together, the whole, involves education. And when you're young, it's almost all training, as it should be. As you grow older, you better be shifting toward picking up education, sophisticated education, and wisdom. And even at the end of your career, you better be able to train yourself. So I believe that the university system should find and encourage those who are willing and able to train themselves and the ones who are willing to seek opportunities for real education. They're very different. Training is a commodity. Professionalism has evolved away from it. Information is everywhere. There was a time when you could be a responsible professional if you just knew things. Not true anymore. Justifying the kind of salaries that we have is very difficult. In flying over here to talk to you, I consumed more than many people will ever earn in their entire life. We have an unusual burden to do more. And I believe that the comparative advantage must be in education. There was a time when knowing things was a big deal. Solving problems was important. Creatively solving problems is not enough anymore. In fact, the real nuanced thing that professionals do is multi-layered. It's much more complex. It's not about consuming things that are written down in textbooks. It's about behavior and thought. So let's see if we do training well. Now, if I went to a Bad Teachers Anonymous meeting, I would have to stand up and say, my name is Woodie Flowers and I'm a bad teacher. Because I'm not pointing my finger at other people. I'm part of the problem, have been. This video breaks my heart. These are my students.